Okay, I'm sure many of you have already seen the latest live stream by Capcom for Monster Hunter Stories 2 and Monster Hunter Rise. There was a lot of hype information on that, and I gotta say, they're doing an amazing job in keeping these games well within expectation, but making it hype at the same time. So I genuinely can't wait for these games. Now let's go ahead and talk about them. Hey everyone, Pinoy X here once again, back with another Monster Hunter video. So I'm sure many of you have already seen the latest digital event for Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. So I'm just gonna go ahead and talk about some of the exciting stuff that I'm really looking forward to between these two games. Now we're gonna talk about Wings of Ruin first because that was the game that they spoke about first before going into Rise. And I gotta say, I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing so far with Monster Hunter Stories 2. This is one of the games that I really wanted Capcom to make another version of, Monster Hunter Stories, because as much as I would like to have mainline Monster Hunter games constantly, a break from the series meta in terms of the way it plays is a good way for you to kind of just not burn yourself out too much, but still have a Monster Hunter game to play all at the same time. So you're still maintaining the series, you're just having a different gameplay for it now, and that's exactly what the Monster Hunter Stories series tends to offer. What I really liked about the trailer is a lot of the information that we got regarding the lore, regarding the monsters coming up in this game, so on and so forth. And the first thing I gotta talk about has to be the upcoming flagship monster for this game, in my opinion at least, which is the Razewing Rathalos. Razewing Ratha is what they call it, but I'm gonna call it in its full name a Razewing Rathalos. And I really like this monster because what they've essentially done here is they've taken the flagship, but they've made it into something that's neither good nor evil. It's just a monster that can take a different kind of direction depending on how the story approaches it, which I really like storyline-wise because seeing a monster that's constantly good or seeing a monster that's constantly evil is a little bit generic in my opinion. I mean, you would always see these kinds of scenarios in most kinds of medium anyway, where there's gonna be a main protagonist, main antagonist, so on and so forth. I kind of like that one that kind of teeters in the middle. It has to maintain that equilibrium so that it doesn't cause itself mass destruction like what they said in the storyline for Monster Hunter Rise, and it maintains that friendship with other people at the same time. So, you know, there's that balance that the Razewing Rat has to maintain here. I'm kind of hoping that that's a mechanic that we see in the game, and it's one of those scenarios where I'm kind of hoping that Capcom partially does like a storyline branching scenario, but I highly doubt that's gonna happen here. So don't quote me on that. I highly doubt that they're gonna branch the storyline of Monster Hunter Stories 2 here. So we're just gonna say I'm really excited for this game and I can't wait for it. I'm genuinely excited here. They've also showcased a number of DLC content and some crossover content with Monster Hunter Rise, but so far, I am genuinely excited for Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. I've been an advocate for having another Stories game, and yeah, I can't wait for July 9th. It's gonna be another long wait for a Monster Hunter game. We're still waiting for Rise at this moment, and I am impatient at this point. But anyway, moving forward to Monster Hunter Rise. Alright, so regarding the Rise info now, let's talk about some of the stuff that they revealed instantly. The first thing we're going to talk about, Nargacuga and Zinogre. The Zinogre was kind of a giveaway because of what Master Atsushi kind of wears here, the Zinogre mask and everything. And with regards to the Nargacuga wear, there was an NPC that did have Nargacuga equipment on her, but not just that, they teased the Nargacuga as far back as last year I think, or maybe early January, where they showcased a concept art of Kagero the Merchant where the Nargacuga is hiding by the tree. So it's kind of a giveaway that they would showcase a concept art with a certain monster on it, and that monster is gonna be in the game. So yeah, Nargacuga and Zinogre, they're making their return in Monster Hunter Rise, and I am genuinely excited for them. These are monsters that I think fit extremely well in these kinds of aesthetics, especially with the Zinogre here, having a really Japanese theme because this monster did actually originate from a Japanese themed Monster Hunter title, which is Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, which was exclusive to Japan. So it was the flagship of that game, and the fact that it's returning here kinda makes a lot of sense for me. There was another monster that they showcased here that we haven't seen before. We're not talking about the one that's gonna be coming up as a free title DLC update, I'm talking about the one right here. I don't know what this monster is, it looks creepy, it looks kind of like a very mysterious yokai type monster, and I'm starting to have this feeling that this could be one of the monsters involved in the Rampage here. They didn't mention it in any way, shape, or form, they just teased it, and I was really hyped up to learn more about it. I was like, Capcom, please show me more of this monster. I want to know more about it. For someone who makes Monster Hunter videos focused mostly on monsters, I want to know what this thing is. That's how excited I was for it. And unfortunately, they didn't showcase it. I was like, that's a little bit disappointing. They've shown every single monster revealed so far, and the free title DLC update monster, but not what this creature is. Something tells me that the reason they did that is because this creature could be part of the ending for the story in Monster Hunter Rise, where it starts to reveal more about the Rampage, why it happens, and the creatures that cause it. So that could be the reason why they teased it, but they didn't talk much about it. Can't wait to see more information on that monster. Alright, so moving forward, let's talk about the mechanics on the Rampage. Now, with regards to the mechanics on the Rampage, one of the key things here is that this is meant to be a tower defense-like game slash, I don't know, like defend your fortress kind of thing, where monsters come in waves, you set up your defense system, and you attack the monsters at the same time when there's something along the lines of the counter signal kicking in, where your hunter gets an attack boost in order to defeat the monsters. One of the key things I really like here is that there's different ways for you to lay out your entire stronghold in order for you to defend against the monsters. So whichever way you set up your stronghold, there could be different combinations that are more effective against certain monsters, other combinations effective against other monsters. So it's gonna depend on what kind of situation you're looking into, what kind of creatures could come up, and how often the major threats and the apex monsters might start to appear. Now, to me, the apex monster could be the final monster that comes up in the final wave, but that remains to be seen. We could see along the lines of, let's say, 3 apex monsters in higher difficulties. We don't exactly know as of yet. All they said is that there are 2 kinds of monsters that could appear that could really tip the scales against you, and that is major threats and the apex monsters. So those are the key creatures that you really want to look out for here. The final bit of info I am gonna add here is that there are gonna be NPCs every once in a while that will come up on the stronghold in order to help you defend against the monsters. Regardless if you're doing this solo or if you're doing it in multiplayer, these NPCs will appear, as you can see with Hinoa and Minoto here, the Shrine Maidens that usually go through the village quest and the hub quest. They're helping you out as of right now in order to take down these monsters. We don't exactly know how the NPCs are chosen in order for you to defend against the monsters. Maybe it's a roulette thing or it could be randomized, but hopefully we get more information on that at some point in the future. And that's pretty much all the information that we got so far regarding the Rampage in terms of the gameplay mechanics. They didn't talk about the lore behind the Rampage here because it's the main focus of the story, but once Monster Hunter Rise releases and we get more information on the story behind the Rampage, I will make a lore video that could connect it to the history of Monster Hunter when we look back to the time of the ancient civilization here. So I'm gonna make a video on that when Monster Hunter Rise releases. I don't want to do it now because it would be a lot of assumptions without really all that much information on it, without seeing how Monster Hunter Rise progresses the Rampage in terms of story. Alright, next up, let's talk about the switch skill mechanic that they spoke about during the digital event. Switch skills are a way for you to customize your weapons in the way they behave. You can alter the way your normal attacks work as well as your self-bind attacks. Basically speaking, the more you progress into the game, the more kinds of attacks you can acquire, and the more attacks you acquire, the more ways you can customize your weapons to work. To me, this is their alternative to customizing your character's hunting style and hunter arts back in Generations Ultimate, but adding in that Rise flair to it. So this to me is a mechanic that we should be familiar with from previous Monster Hunter titles with Generations and Gen Ultimate, but it will behave differently as we can see with Monster Hunter Rise. So not quite sure on how this is 100% gonna work as of yet, but if it does behave the way I think it does, it should be a way for Capcom to introduce hunting styles once again in Monster Hunter Rise alongside hunter arts, in that you can customize them to your own personal liking, which is gonna be super awesome because I've always wanted to see hunting styles make a return in the Monster Hunter series, and they're essentially doing that with the switch skill mechanic. And finally, let's talk about the very first title DLC update that Capcom already announced, and this game hasn't even launched yet. This is the Elder Dragon known as Camellios. Camellios has two very distinct capabilities that make it a very unique Elder Dragon. The first one is the part that the monster can generate a mist and it can turn invisible, hence the Camellios name. It's a chameleon, it blends into the environment. When the monster turns invisible, it's very difficult for it to track. Even if you have ways of already tracking it, like in previous Monster Hunter games, you put a paintball on the monster and it turns invisible, it's gonna be very difficult for you to find it regardless if you paintball the monster or not. More than likely, this is gonna be the same in Monster Hunter Rise as well, in that if the monster turns invisible, it's gonna be very difficult for you to spot the monster, and the only real way for you to tell if the creature is nearby is if you see the small outline of the monster being generated during the middle of the hunt. So for those of you that don't know it, in the middle of a hunt against Camellios, sometimes you will see the outline of the monster to indicate that the creature is there. So those are the key things that you need to watch out for. Alongside this, the Camellios has the unique ability to steal items from hunters. This was actually something that they were trying to showcase with the Melinks here, in that Camellios was trying to steal its staff. When the Camellios steals an item from you, that's it, the item is completely gone. This is one of those things that kind of necessitates having to go back into the camp in order for you to restock on certain items, because if you prepare yourself against Camellios, no matter how prepared you are, if this creature steals one of your important items, it's going to be very difficult to hunt down the monster. So this is something that might necessitate the whole facility with the camp in Monster Hunter Rise and even World Iceborne if Camellios did come up in that game. So do keep that in mind. The Camellios stealing items can be very frustrating for some hunters out there. So it does kind of necessitate the whole camping mechanic that we have in this title as of right now. Now, just as a couple of final small notes here and there, let's talk about the whole customization for your character here. Not only did they mention that you can customize the way your character looks, especially with your hairstyles as well as layered armor, there's also voice customization for your character now, and there's one distinct thing that they said here, in that you can customize your character to have the voices of the NPC in the game at this moment in Monster Hunter Rise. And instantly in my head, I reacted like so. I am going to make a Minotaur Hunter. This is hype! So this is going to be very interesting, because for those of you that have never played previous Monster Hunter games, customization was very limited, and even in World Iceborne, you can't really customize the voice of your character because your character doesn't speak. But in this one, because our character speaks and we can have a frequency on how they speak, we do have the customization option to give our characters different voices, and that kind of gets me excited. So yeah, this is going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to try out different voices for my character. I'm definitely going to make a Minotaur character now, just because of the fact that we can customize our character to have her voice on it. So yeah, those are all the information that we have so far for both Monster Hunter Rise as well as Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin coming up as of this year. It's a very exciting year to be a monster hunter. And that's gonna be pretty much it for this video, talking about all the content dump that Capcom did on us for Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin and Monster Hunter Rise. For those of you that never got to play the demo, by the way, if you want to go ahead and try out the demo for yourself, there is going to be a second wave of demo coming up on March 11. You can go ahead and fight against Magnum Malo on this one, so if you want to go ahead and try your mettle against the flagship monster of Monster Hunter Rise, March 11 is for you to try out the demo for this game. And with that being said, what do you think about all of the content so far for Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin? Let us know in the comments below your thoughts and opinions on all of the information that we're getting regarding the Monster Hunter series as of right now. Now, with all of that being said, if you enjoyed these videos, please consider leaving a like on the video itself and subscribing to the channel, as well as hitting that bell icon so you can go ahead and catch up on any future Monster Hunter content that I might be doing or any other games that I might be playing in future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Onward and upward.